What absolves you of your guilt is not your smile, but the weight of your conscience, especially since the world doesn't give a damn about your self-esteem.
You are being lied to by a false binary. On one hand, you have the Stoics. They tell you to endure, to accept, to retreat into the fortress of your own mind. On the other, you have Niccolò Machiavelli. He whispers that the world is a slaughterhouse, and if you do not hold the knife, you will be the meat. Most people spend their lives torn between these two avatars. You try to be good, and you get exploited. You try to be ruthless, and you are consumed by guilt or paranoia. You oscillate between the saint and the tyrant, failing at both. Here is the truth neither side admits. Stoicism without power is just dissociation. It is a sedative for the conquered. But Machiavellianism without internal control is self-destruction. It is a fire that burns the arsonist. This isn't a historical lecture. This is the deconstruction of a psychological cage. I'm going to show you that these are not opposing philosophies. They are two halves of a single dangerous weapon used by the most powerful figures in history. By the end, you will not choose between them. You will learn the synthesis, the psychological architecture of the Stoic prince, the framework that allows you to operate with the ruthlessness of a prince while sleeping with the conscience of a sage. First, we must dismantle the myths you hold dear. Section 1. The Machiavellian operator, the architecture of power. Let's look at the world as it actually is, not as we wish it to be. If you walk into a boardroom, a political arena, or a high-stakes negotiation armed only with Marcus Aurelius's Meditations, you are bringing a shield to a gunfight. There is a reason Machiavelli is reviled in public, but studied in private by those who occupy the highest echelons of power. The Prince was not written for the masses. It was a job application, a secret manual on how to seize a state and hold it against enemies. The central tenet is not simply, the ends justify the means. The actual lesson is that morality is a luxury of stability. When the walls are breached, kindness is not a virtue, it is a liability. Machiavelli argues that a leader who tries to be good in a world of bad men will inevitably come to ruin. This is not cynicism. This is physics. Consider his primary case study, Cesare Borgia. Machiavelli didn't invent his theories. He watched Borgia execute them in real time. Borgia, son of Pope Alexander VI, had conquered the Romagna region, but it was lawless. Robbery, feuds, chaos. The place was ungovernable. If Borgia had gone in with stoic patience, trying to lead by example, he would have been laughed at, then assassinated. Instead, he appointed a man named Ramiro de Orco, a cruel, efficient, ruthless lieutenant. Borgia gave him absolute power. Ramiro did exactly what was asked. He tortured, he executed, he terrified the population into submission. He established order through blood. The job was done. But now the people hated Ramiro, and by extension, they were beginning to hate Borgia. A Stoic would ask, how do I bear this hatred virtuously? A Machiavellian asks, how do I use this hatred? One morning, the people of the local piazza woke up to find a spectacle. There was Ramiro de Orco, or rather, two halves of him, cut in two and placed on a block of wood with a bloody knife beside him. The message was instant and surgical. Borgia took credit for the new order and safety, but he executed the cruelty responsible for it. He signaled to the people, I am not the monster he was, and I have saved you from him. Machiavelli wrote that the people were at once satisfied and stupefied. This is the cold reality of power. It often requires a scapegoat. It requires theatrical violence. The edgy internet Machiavellians make a fatal error here. They think being Ramiro de Orco is the goal. They think cruelty is power. It is not. Ramiro was a tool. He was reactive, emotional in his violence, and because he lacked an internal fortress, he became disposable. The true player was Borgia, watching from the balcony. This leads to Machiavelli's unsettling question: is it better to be loved or feared? His answer: it is best to be both, but if one must choose, it is much safer to be feared. Love is held by a chain of obligation, which, because men are self-interested, is broken at every opportunity. Fear is maintained by a dread of punishment, which never fails. But how does a human being execute a man he employed, cut him in half, and then go eat breakfast? This is where the cracks in pure Machiavellianism appear. Section 2. The Stoic Citadel, the Architecture of Peace. Let's turn the lens. Stoicism, in its modern, watered-down form, is marketed as a life hack. Cold showers and journaling. Amor fati. It has been commodified into a stress ball for the working class. Accept what you cannot control. This is dangerous advice if you misunderstand the perimeter of control. For the average person, this interpretation of Stoicism is a coping mechanism for powerlessness. It is operant conditioning for submission. It creates good workers, not great men. The ancient Stoics were not submissive. Seneca was the advisor to Emperor Nero and one of the richest men in Rome. He wrote beautiful letters on the unimportance of wealth while lending money at usurious rates. Critics called him a hypocrite. I call him a realist. Seneca understood that philosophy is the anchor that keeps the ship from capsizing in a storm. But the ship still needs sails. The money, the power, the influence. Those were the sails. Stoicism was the ballast. But look at what happens when the external pressure exceeds the internal structure. Nero eventually turned on Seneca. When the order came for Seneca to commit suicide, he didn't run or beg. He opened his veins, dictated his final thoughts, and remained calm. He died well, but he still died. Then there is Marcus Aurelius, the poster boy of Stoicism. You read his meditations and hear a man trying to be good. Today I shall be meeting with interference, ingratitude, insolence, disloyalty, ill will, and selfishness. It sounds like he's talking about annoying neighbors. He wasn't. He was talking about the Roman Senate, Germanic warlords, and even his own co-emperor. Marcus Aurelius was the absolute ruler of the known world. He spent the majority of his reign not in a garden, but in a tent on the mud-soaked frontiers, commanding the most violent military machine in history, suppressing rebellions, and ordering the slaughter of thousands. The Stoic citadel is an inner fortress of the mind, built on 4 virtues: wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. Its purpose is to remain undisturbed by the chaos of the external world. You have power over your mind, not outside events, Marcus wrote. Realize this, and you will find strength. This promises peace, but it doesn't promise victory. Section 3. The flaw in isolation, the tyrant and the doormat. History is filled with dead Stoics and deposed Machiavellians. When followed in isolation, both philosophies lead to disaster. The pure Machiavellian, who embraces the cynical, manipulative core of the philosophy, creates a psychological prison for himself. A life lived believing everyone is a rival is a life of profound and corrosive paranoia. This constant hypervigilance erodes any possibility of genuine human connection. Relationships become tools. You win the game, but lose your soul. Machiavelli's hero, Cesare Borgia, saw his empire crumble after an illness and the death of his father. His lack of genuine alliances left him with nothing when his power base evaporated, and he died a soldier in the service of another king. Now, look at the other extreme, the pure Stoic, who internalizes the dichotomy of control so completely they become passive. This is the peace of the conquered. Stoicism without a strategy for navigating the world is a sedative. To be completely indifferent to the perceptions of others is to become a doormat for those willing to play the game of power. A boss's unfair opinion, while external, can get you fired. A rival's rumor can destroy your career. This interpretation of Stoicism teaches you how to endure, but not how to win. It becomes a beautiful philosophy for losers. You save your soul, but you lose the war. Section 4. The synthesis, the psychological architecture of the Stoic Prince. The choice is a lie. The real strategy, the one used by the most effective figures in history, is the synthesis. It's the integration of these two philosophies into a single, formidable operating system. The Stoic Prince. This is not a compromise. It is a weaponization of both, where each covers the other's weaknesses. Stoicism without strategy makes you a victim. Machiavellianism without discipline makes you a self-destructive monster. The Stoic becomes unshakable. The Machiavellian becomes unstoppable. When you combine them, you become untouchable. Here is how it works. 1. Emotional mastery with strategic action. The Stoic Prince governs their internal world with Stoic discipline, but navigates the external world with Machiavellian strategy. They use Stoicism to scrub the emotion out of their decision-making. You cannot be ruthless if you are emotional. You simply become cruel. Cruelty is born of anger and insecurity. Ruthlessness is clinical, logical, and born of necessity. Marcus Aurelius used Stoicism as a containment field that allowed him to execute the harshness required to rule without losing his mind. It's what allows you to fire the incompetent employee without guilt or cut off the toxic family member without hesitation, because you have removed the emotional judgment from the action. 2. Appearance versus reality, virtue camouflage. Machiavelli taught that perception is power. Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are. The pure Stoic scoffs at this. This is naive. The Stoic Prince understands reputation is a critical asset. So, they practice virtue camouflage. They use Stoicism to cultivate genuine inner virtue, while using Machiavellian insight to strategically manage how that virtue is perceived. You curate the mask, but you do not become addicted to it. When they cheer, you are indifferent. When they boo, you are indifferent. You manage your public persona like a stock portfolio, but you are not it. 3. Aggressive amor fati. The Stoics preached amor fati, the love of one's fate. The Stoic Prince takes this a step further. They don't just accept fate, they attack it. When disaster strikes, a market crash, a betrayal, a failure, they don't just passively accept it. They see it as a new set of conditions to be conquered. This is aggressive amor fati. They combine the Stoic acceptance of what cannot be changed with the Machiavellian drive to change everything that can be. You don't just endure the chaos, you metabolize it. Section 5. The synthesis in modern life. A practical guide. Let's move from the abstract to the concrete. The modern world is soft, but the underlying dynamics are still primal. We just swapped swords for lawsuits and poison for HR complaints. Scenario: the corporate sabotage. You have a colleague, Elias. He smiles at you, but in meetings, he subtly undermines you. The average person gets emotional. They confront Elias, who gaslights them. Now they look crazy. The pure Stoic ignores Elias and focuses on their work. Result: Elias gets the promotion. The Stoic Prince plays it differently. Stoic phase: you feel the anger. You acknowledge it. You dismantle it. You realize Elias is not a villain. He is a competitor. It is not personal. You remove your ego. Machiavellian phase. You engage the law of asymmetry. You become friendlier to Elias. You praise him in public to lower his guard. You document his actions. You let him steal a trap idea, an idea you know will fail. When he makes his move, you simply step aside and let the weight of his own incompetence crush him. Because you praised him, no one suspects you. You killed him with kindness, eliminating the threat while remaining the good guy. In your relationships, sovereignty. In any relationship, the person who needs the other least holds the power. The purely Machiavellian approach is toxic manipulation. The purely Stoic approach can appear cold and indifferent. The synthesis is sovereignty. You love fully, you are present, but you maintain a fortress of the self. You do not make another person your entire source of happiness. You apply the Stoic principle of self-sufficiency. This makes you incredibly attractive. Neediness is repulsive. Sovereignty is magnetic. For centuries, you have been presented with a false choice: the path of power or the path of virtue, Machiavelli or Stoicism. This is a lie, a limitation placed upon you by a world that profits from your predictability. The real answer, the most dangerous and effective truth, is that you must be both. Must cultivate an inner citadel of peace so unshakable that it allows you to be a ruthless operator in the external world. You need the discipline of the Stoic to master yourself, and the strategic cunning of the Machiavellian to master the game. The goal is not to be feared or to be loved. The goal is to be effective. The goal is not to find peace by detaching from the world, but to forge peace by mastering it. The modern world does not reward purity. It rewards integration. So, which one should you follow? The question is flawed. The real question is, are you strong enough to master both? The path of the Stoic Prince is not for everyone. But for those who walk it, it offers the ultimate prize: a life of both power and peace, of success without self-destruction, and of virtue that is not just a principle, but a force. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Then, use that strength to shape those outside events to your will. That is the synthesis. That is the victory.